Welcome again to another episode of Life Design Diaries, and this is our final book of our mini-series, the 7 books that changed our lives.
Best till last, I reckon, this one.
It is a very, very interesting one. I wouldn't say this is the best till last. We didn't want to do this in like a countdown way.
Yeah, but now you've brought it to the table, I'm like, yeah, this is
It is
one.
a very fascinating one. If you're interested in the human brain and understanding how we perceive the world, and you really like that stuff, then I would absolutely recommend this book. And this author, so who I like you, struggled to pronounce his name. So the book...
I don't know what you mean.
The book is Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely.
Oh, really?
Ariely, yes. Ariely, maybe. But like I said, it's really talking about how we as humans behave in different circumstances, how we perceive the world differently, how the mind works differently. And I got caught by the title. I mean, Predictably Irrational. Mm-hmm. So he essentially says that we act in certain ways which we may feel are irrational. So just to use one example, if I was to want to do something, say I really wanted to have a healthy day in terms of the food I ate that day. However, halfway through the day, something really bad happens to me and my state changes. I'm now all of a sudden very emotional, and naturally would welcome some comfort to that and want to eat, I don't know.
A big bar of dairy milk.
Well, for me it wouldn't. It would be a pizza.
Fizzy laces.
Exactly. So that would seem like an irrational behavior because I've gone against my own desires. However, because we as humans do that, and there's loads of studies within the book, actually that behavior is also very predictable. So predictably irrational, I really like that, and actually predicting when people are going to behave in certain ways.
Yeah, and also you can kind of internalize, oh, I'm feeling like this, I understand why, and you can kind of bring yourself back up to like a level state rather than being hot or cold.
Well,
no,
exactly.
Actually, cold is good, isn't it?
Well, yeah, no, you're dead right. It talks about states. It talks about how you are in a cold state when you're not emotional, and you can, you're very rational in your thinking, and you tend to decide and choose the best things for yourself. However, if you're in what they call a hot state, and you're the opposite, very emotional and things like I just said.
Think road rage.
Then, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then you react in a very different way. And you are so right, Lucy. The thing I took from that is that by understanding the differences between those two states, you can start to recognize patterns within yourself and know when you're in a hot state. Understand that actually this is happening to me now. And it's quite predictable across humans. And I can control that. And it helps you kind of better control your two states so that you can act in a way which is more in line with your cold state, which is kind of within your own best interest. So yeah, that's just one element of the book, but I really love how he comes up with a lot of hypotheses, and then that is proven by the tests that they do. And so there's loads of different tests that articulate and sort of show in different ways how this research is backed, and just one. So I've got a quote here which I really, really like, a passage from the book, and that it says, "Our visual and decision environments are filtered to us courtesy of our eyes, our ears, our senses of smell and touch, and the master of it all, our brain. By the time we comprehend and digest information, it is not necessarily a true reflection of reality. Instead, it is our representation of reality, and this is the input we base our decisions on." Mind blown. But it really is that type of book where you read stuff like that and you think, how interesting. It talks about a scenario where someone's on the train, I think it's the London Tube actually, and there's a mother, and her child is acting up, shouting, screaming, causing a right scene. And this person goes in and they think, why is she not controlling her child? It's right there. You see the evidence. The child is clearly acting out of place, not acting very well within the environment.
Not behaving.
And so the decision that, it talks about your senses, the senses of ears to hear that and eyes to see that. And you perceive that reality and you make a decision and a judgment based on that. And this person thought the mum should be controlling her child. However, if you flip that round, and actually the way it turned out is that the mother had just lost the father, and the child obviously they'd just been literally just heard that news. And so the mum was doing nothing about it, but she was going through a huge, terrible experience herself. And so the child was as well. Well, actually, the perception completely changes then. But the fact is the same, that the child was acting as the child was acting. But depending on the circumstance of how you perceive that, you can form a very different decision and judgment off the back of it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of really find that interesting about how it almost makes you question, your own perception of things.
Yeah. Like I think that it definitely helps you not be judgmental.
Yeah, exactly.
If you see things going on and you hold an opinion about someone, well, you actually have no idea what's going on. So you hold back your own.
Exactly.
Your
Yeah.
own...
It's kind of like in that moment where you think there's a black and a white. It is either black or white. Well, actually, there is a grey.
Yeah.
Because everything that we see in this world is only determined by our own senses and how we perceive that. And so there's kind of always a grey. And that's all kind of very thought-provoking stuff. And so I definitely recommend it if you're interested in that type of thing. But also on a more sort of practical level, it did actually help me with things like sales, setting prices. It gives a really good example of the way in which the human brain perceives prices. And, we've all kind of can probably associate with, when you see something that's too cheap, because it is cheap, you feel like it's cheap, of course. And equally, on the other scale, if something's expensive, you naturally assume that it's an expensive product, even though it may not be, but that's just the way it is, because you kind of get what you pay for, is the saying that's sort of been drummed into us. But it just talks about a scenario of a microwave. And if you go into an electrical shop and you're looking to buy a microwave, well, actually, as humans, we've got no real idea about how much a microwave costs. We don't know the value of a microwave, whether it's £30, £50, 100, 200 quid. Like we wouldn't know if we looked at it in isolation, right there on the shelf with nothing else around it. We would not be able to put a figure on that accurately anyway. What we do though, is we compare everything. So we need an anchor to compare it to. So if we were to look at a microwave that's £50 and there's one next to it that's £80 and one to the other side of it that's £30, all of a sudden you start to make a judgment based on, well, this one's probably not got as many features, it's probably not as good, this one's better, and this one's even better. And you start to compare. But that is so interesting for me from a sales perspective. And if you offer anything, a service or a product, and you're trying to put a price on it, well, it kind of helps you understand how people perceive that and almost the buying journey of other people and how they need a comparison. And you can start to use that in quite neat ways. I always find it interesting when I go into any fast food chain, or, it could be like the classic one is like a juice bar or like a smoothie bar. And they always have small, medium, large, don't they? I always find it interesting on how they switch it around sometimes. They'll have small on the left, the large option on the menu in the middle, and then the medium to the right, because people like choosing the medium. They don't want to commit to the cheap. They don't want to go to the expensive. They quite like things down the middle. And so they try to manipulate that the middle is the large.
On their like sales boards and things like that.
Yeah, and even what they call them. Do they call them small and large, or regular and large? Or small and regular, and they discount large. So if you're interested in that type of thing, then this book, Predictably Irrational, is fascinating. So I would absolutely recommend it. Link to it in the show notes. That concludes our 7 books that changed our lives. Really hope that you enjoyed it. Let us know. We've had some interesting book recommendations come in. We love a good book recommendation. So if you have one and you want to let us know, head over to Life Design Diaries now, click contact us, and just send us your book recommendation. We'd love to give it a read, and then, you know, we'll probably do another series like this at some point in time when we've consumed more books. So I hope you enjoyed this mini series, and as I said, get over to Lifetime's Diaries now and let us know your book recommendation.